the new champion of West Africa vows to end colonialism. They're calling him Africa's Che Guevara, a young captain from a small village who is now staring down the world's superpowers. At only 37 years old, he's the second youngest head of state on the planet, a massive departure from the continent's aging political class. But what really happens when a leader vows to dismantle a century of colonial control? And why are global powers so terrified he might actually succeed? This isn't just another story about a military coup. This is the story of how one man, Captain Ibrahim Traore, lit a fire that could reclaim an entire continent's destiny. It's a story of a nation throwing off the shackles of its past, and of a generation demanding not just a seat at the table, but to build a new table altogether. To really get how we got to this moment, you first have to understand the world that created him. A world of incredible wealth, crushing poverty, and promises that were broken time and time again. Burkina Faso. The name itself is a declaration. It means, Land of the Upright People, a name given by another revolutionary captain, Thomas Sankara, back in 1984. And yet, for decades, this landlocked nation in the heart of West Africa has been forced to its knees. It's a country of deep contradictions, a place blessed with vast mineral wealth, yet it's almost always ranked among the world's poorest nations. For years, its soil has been plundered. Take gold, one of its most significant assets. It was largely controlled by foreign companies, with the profits flowing straight out of the country. The people were left with environmental damage, and almost none of the wealth generated from their own land. In 2023 alone, the country mined 57 tons of gold, making up 13% of its GDP, but you wouldn't know it by looking at the lives of its citizens. This is the textbook definition of neocolonialism, a system where political independence is just a mask for ongoing economic slavery. That slavery was enforced by a political class widely seen as corrupt, incompetent, and loyal to foreign interests. One government after another failed to address the basic needs of the people, leading to a deep, simmering frustration. But the biggest failure was security. Since 2015, the country has been drowning in a brutal conflict with extremist groups, a crisis that has spiraled completely out of control. The violence has been catastrophic. By August 2024, the conflict had already killed thousands and forced over 2 million people from their homes. Whole regions were cut off from food and aid, with civilians trapped between extremist attacks and, sometimes, brutal counterinsurgency operations. The National Army was poorly equipped and demoralized, fighting a war with barely enough resources, while the political elites in the capital seemed totally disconnected from the grim reality on the ground. A feeling of abandonment festered, both in the military and among the people. The state was failing, and everyone knew it. This was the landscape of despair, the perfect fertile ground for a revolution. Into this pressure cooker of a crisis stepped a young, unassuming captain. Ibrahim Traore was born in 1988 in the rural village of Bondakwi. His humble background gave him a real understanding of the struggles of everyday Burkinabe, a perspective that would come to define his leadership. He joined the army in 2009, not looking for power, but for a purpose. He quickly made a name for himself, serving in UN peacekeeping missions and fighting on the front lines of the vicious war against jihadists in the north. It was there, in the dust and danger of the Sahel, that his determination was forged. He saw the courage of his fellow soldiers, and he saw the shocking lack of support they received. He saw with his own eyes the results of corruption and neglect, the missing equipment, the broken strategies, and the huge gap between the government's promises and the reality for his soldiers. He became a voice for the troops who felt left behind, a respected leader who they saw was committed not to a regime, but to the nation itself. The country was on a knife's edge. A coup in January 2022 had put one military leader in charge, but things only got worse. The violence exploded, the state seemed to be collapsing even faster, and the anger in the military ranks was about to boil over. On September 30, 2022, Traoré and his fellow officers made their move. They ousted the interim president, Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, in what they insisted wasn't a grab for power, but a fight for survival. At just 34, Ibrahim Traoré became the interim president of Burkina Faso and the world's youngest head of state. For the country's youth, who are the vast majority of the population, this was a seismic shift. Here was a leader who wasn't part of the old guard, a leader who spoke their language of frustration and hope. His youth, his military resolve, and his quiet intensity made him a powerful symbol for a new generation ready to take control of its own future. This new generation isn't just rising in Burkina Faso, it's a wave sweeping across the continent. They're flipping the script and demanding leaders who serve the people, not outside interests. If you believe in this mission and want to support analysis that the mainstream media often ignores, think about subscribing to the channel. Join our community as we track this historic shift in power and what it really means for the future of Africa. Captain Traoré didn't waste time. His government wasn't just a change of faces, it was a radical change in direction. His actions were swift, decisive, and aimed right at the heart of the old neocolonial system. First, he went after the most obvious symbol of foreign power. In a move that sent shockwaves across the region, he demanded the withdrawal of all French troops from Burkina Faso's soil. For decades, the French military was just a fact of life in the Sahel, supposedly there for security. But for many, it was a bitter reminder of colonial rule. Traoré's decision was a powerful declaration of sovereignty. It was him saying that from now on, Burkina Faso would handle its own security. Second, he built a new regional alliance. Knowing that this fight couldn't be won alone, he joined forces with the military governments of Mali and Niger to form the Alliance of Sahel States, or AES. This is more than a defense pact. It's a political and economic bloc built on mutual support and a shared rejection of outside control. In January 2025, the AES took the massive step of formally leaving ECOWAS, the old West African regional body, which they accused of being a puppet for foreign powers. The AES is now building its own confederation, with plans for a common passport, a shared investment bank, and maybe even a new currency, all aimed at true independence. Third, and this might be the most critical, Traoré went after the economic engine of neocolonialism: the exploitation of natural resources. His government took the bold step of nationalizing key gold mines, taking them back from foreign companies. He then announced an end to the export of raw, unrefined gold and opened the country's first state-owned gold refinery. The goal? To process the nation's wealth inside its own borders. The message couldn't be clearer. The riches of Burkina Faso must first help the people of Burkina Faso. This was followed by a stunning claim that Burkina Faso had cleared its $4.7 billion external debt, a move Traoré said was thanks to smarter management and new income from nationalized resources. He has openly rejected loans from institutions like the IMF, which he calls a form of modern slavery, insisting the country can and must develop on its own terms. Finally, he turned inward and mobilized the very people he swore to protect. He launched a massive recruitment drive for the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, VDPs, a civilian force to back up the army. This shows a huge shift from relying on foreign armies to empowering your own citizens to defend themselves. In his 2024 end-of-year address, he announced plans to recruit over 15,000 more soldiers and create new rapid intervention battalions to secure the country. These aren't just policies. They are the building blocks of a revolution in motion. A revolution of this scale never goes unchallenged. The old guard, both regional and international, doesn't just stand by while its influence gets dismantled. The pushback against Traoré and the AES has been intense, and it's coming from all sides. There have been claims of multiple foiled coup attempts since he took power, with the government insisting that some plots involve foreign and domestic actors trying to sow total chaos and put the nation back under external supervision. Whether true or not, these claims show just how tense the situation is and how high the stakes are. The government has even pointed a finger at the neighboring Ivory Coast for supposedly sheltering plotters, which has only made regional tensions worse. The pressure from Western powers has been obvious. High-ranking U.S. military officials have called Traoré's government an illegitimate junta and publicly accused him of diverting the country's gold reserves, an accusation that led to massive protests in his support across the country. This narrative, painting his government as corrupt and authoritarian, is a powerful weapon used to isolate and delegitimize it on the world stage. Western media has often zeroed in on the human rights situation, which is still terrible as the conflict rages on, with abuses being committed by all sides, including state and pro-government forces. But while leaders in Brussels and Washington were condemning the coup publicly, a different story was playing out behind the scenes. After initially cutting off contact, European diplomats, including the EU's own special representative for the Sahel, have made quiet trips to Ouagadougou. It's a reluctant admission that they can't just ignore the new power center in the Sahel. They denounced the military takeover, but now they're trying to re-engage, which is a quiet acknowledgement that Burkina Faso and the AES are a force to be reckoned with. This whole dynamic reveals a deep hypocrisy, a public obsession with democracy that seems to hide a deeper fear of losing access to resources and geopolitical influence. The empire is striking back, not just with condemnations, but with a messy mix of diplomatic games, economic pressure, and an information war. Through all this pressure and chaos, Captain Traoré's resolve has only seemed to get stronger. He has stepped onto the world stage not as someone asking for handouts, but as a leader with a clear and unshakable message. His speeches aren't just talk. They are declarations of intent, a modern echo of the Pan-African visionaries who came before him. He's often compared to Thomas Sankara, and he's leaned into it, saying his mission is to finish the work that Sankara started. Like Sankara, he presents himself as a man of service and humility, famously refusing the presidential salary and continuing to live on his captain's pay. This symbolic act hits home with a population that is sick and tired of watching leaders get rich while the nation suffers. His vision is one of radical self-reliance. He talks about building industrial zones in every region, about building roads and hospitals with the country's own money, and of turning raw materials into finished products at home instead of exporting them for pennies on the dollar. In a recent speech, he said, "We are working so that our country can be industrialized. I didn't say robotized. We will make sure that we are in the sweet spot where youth are employed and wealth is well redistributed everywhere." This is a vision of development that puts people first, not automated efficiency or foreign profit. His defiance is completely unapologetic. He has become a leading voice in the alliance of Sahel states, a bloc that is actively building new partnerships with countries like Russia, signaling a clear pivot away from the West. This shift is a bold statement that African nations will no longer be trapped in colonial-era spheres of influence. They will operate in a multipolar world where they choose their partners based on their own interests. This stance has made him an icon, especially for Africa's youth. His popularity stretches far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. When he attended an inauguration in Ghana, he reportedly got the loudest applause of any leader there, which shows just how deeply his message of sovereignty and dignity is connecting across the continent. He has become the face of hope for millions, who see in him the chance for a truly independent and prosperous Africa. The story of Captain Ibrahim Traore and Burkina Faso is far from over. The path they've chosen is filled with danger. The security crisis is still a brutal, daily reality, with violence claiming lives and displacing families even as the government fights to take back control. The challenges of building a self-sufficient economy from the ground up are enormous, and the risk of falling into the same traps of corruption that destroyed past governments is very real. But something has fundamentally changed. A line has been drawn in the sands of the Sahel. Traoré's leadership, whether you see it as a necessary revolution or a dangerous military takeover, has shattered the illusion of the post-colonial world order. He is both a reflection of popular anger and a catalyst for change across the continent. He has forced a conversation that many powerful people did not want to have, a conversation about resource sovereignty, political dignity, and what independence truly means. Is this a model that can work for the rest of Africa? Can a nation really break free from a global economic system that was designed over centuries to keep it down? What happens when the full weight of the forces that oppose this change finally comes crashing down? These are the questions now hanging over West Africa, and really, the entire continent. What's certain is that a generation has woken up. From the streets of Ouagadougou to the social media feeds of young people in Kenya, Togo, and beyond, a new Pan-African spirit is stirring. They're watching Burkina Faso not just as a news story, but as a test run for their own dreams. Captain Ibrahim Traoré may be one man, but he has become the powerful symbol of a continent's unbreakable promise to finally and completely reclaim its own destiny. What are your thoughts on this new chapter in African politics? Is this the start of a real liberation, or is it a dangerous path? Let us know in the comments below. The conversation doesn't end here. For more in-depth stories on the leaders and movements reshaping our world, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.